term side hustle is a pretty common one. And I've had one for some time. I like to write books and blog and things of that stature. Haven't sold enough to retire. No, not that I would if I could. But what I'm fascinated about by you is that not only did you have a side hustle that became a full-time gig, but you also pursued it during a pandemic, which frankly, I mean, some people might say that that's unheard of. So I'd love to hear your story and get your thoughts, not only just on how the side hustle came to be, but also why you pursued it during a pandemic and how has it panned out for you?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, thanks for having me on. Really excited to be here today. I've seen a couple of those episodes and appreciate the opportunity. But yeah, Adam McChesney here in St. Louis. So I have a pretty interesting background. I went to college for sports management. Tried to get into that industry through a couple of internships during my summers in college. Graduated in 2014, and right out of college, I kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit. I just didn't know that I had it. Didn't know that I was going to get into sales either. So I kind of, went to school for sports management / marketing. Didn't really know what marketing meant. Just kind of assumed that that's what a lot of people that didn't know what they wanted to do kind of got into. And so as I transitioned out of college, in my first job, that was an internship. Trying to get into, it's kind of really where I learned sales, but where I decided that this wasn't what I wanted to do at the time. I tried to start two businesses, one with a roommate out of college, tried to start that. And then I also invested in a company, pretty much all the money that I had, and tried to get into that company and get it off the ground. Both of them failed pretty quickly. So I had this nice degree. I had, a bunch of job offers right out of college, and I took a little bit of a different path. And so I tried to do my own thing for essentially 6 months. And at the end of the 6 months, realized that, you're probably not cut out to be an entrepreneur. I just kind of accepted that. I was living in my parents' basement. I was essentially a year and a half removed from graduating college and didn't know what I wanted to do. So I luckily got into the medical sales space. So I was doing some sales for a life science company here in St. Louis. Did that for a year and a half, traveled, had a pretty large territory, grew my accounts by an absolutely insane standpoint, but it was a relatively small time for that industry and what I was wanting to do. So back in 2017, got on with a company selling specifically medical devices in the sleep apnea and ventilation space. Quickly worked my way up, was very successful there. Within 9 months, I got promoted to a full-time account manager, and was just working the Missouri market, but was making extremely good money, more money than I literally ever thought. Looking back at it, I went from basically 2 years from not having anything to getting into a Fortune 500 company and promoted, and making healthy six figures, which at the time I was 27. So things went from very, very not unsure, very unsure of what I was going to do, to being very successful at a premier company. And a year went by, and just kind of had a mindset of like, what am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing? You have all of this money, you have all of the things that 99% of the population would absolutely die to be in my position, and you're still there's something that's in there that's you're wanting more. And I could have climbed up the corporate ladder, I could have done all of those things, and I was well on my path to doing that. But in 2018, so kind of a backstory on my digital marketing stuff, I knew how to sell that, because one of the businesses that I tried to start right out of college, I sold those things. But I kind of wanted to perform at a little bit better of a knowledge base. So I took a couple of courses, was trying to find ways to just in my spare time make money online. I always thought the idea of owning real estate and renting it out was very cool. So the program that I got kind of drawn into was a digital real estate program, where you build these mini websites and then you rank out the calls to local businesses. You help them, with their lead flow, but you do it in a responsible and scalable way where they're not paying the large national companies that are out there. They're paying a marketing agency that's just taking their money. So I got into that, of course, as everyone does with most courses that they pay to get into, they don't do anything with it. So I didn't really do anything with it for basically a year and a half. And I was sitting there into 2020. I just got married. I kind of had that spark to say, you know what, this is something that I need to focus on more. So I started doing some stuff on the weekends. Things started kind of gaining traction, started having some more people interested. But then the pandemic hit. So in the medical device industry, I was on the road all of the time. I was in and out of meetings, 14-hour days sometimes. So I didn't have time to do any of this stuff. So as things flipped, we're at home, we're getting our work done. You're not going out like you used to. You're not doing any of those other things. Can't even go to the gym. So any hour that I had available, I just really doubled down on what I was doing in this business, which was creating websites, ranking websites, and running ads for local businesses. Over the course of like 6 weeks at the beginning of the pandemic, I'm sitting here and I'm like, wow, not only am I getting the results, but I'm getting referrals. And I'm not even talking that I'm doing these things. It's just behind the scenes. And I realized that there was a huge disconnect with what I was specifically trying to do. And my main target market is contractors. So there were scams everywhere, especially with the pandemic. People were trying to get into the industry that had no idea what they were doing. And I just had this knowledge base that took me a while to figure out. So over the course of from May up until from March until July, I was doing it kind of on the side. And then I, moved into a new house. I, had all the security, everything. And I'm like, my back is up against the wall. I either need to stop this side business because it's getting too big. I'm just going to sell it, or I need to go full time into it. And I was obviously very confused on what the next step was, but I realized that where I'm at in my life, 29 years old or 28 at the time, I need to bet on myself, and I need to take this next step, because you're not going to have a better opportunity of a business that's already scaling and potentially growing than you have right now. So I left in July and have been doing it full time since then. My business has absolutely grown through not only the referrals that I've gotten, but I'm doing a lot of personal branding over on Facebook, which is where a lot of my target market tends to be. I've joined some very high level networking and business coaching groups that have absolutely taken my business to heights that I never thought would happen in the first 7 months. But that's where we're at right now. So it's pretty unique.
Adam, I love it. And there's a lot to unpack there. So first off, let me say congratulations. It sounds like there's a series of some really good personal and career wins that have transpired. I find it fascinating to just talk to people that have thrived during this time, and going to where there was a need and being able to identify not only the need, but also developing your unique skills and investing in your own knowledge base. So there was a couple things that really jumped out at me while you were talking. First off, entrepreneurial spirit. I think in this day and age, an entrepreneurial spirit is practically table stakes, especially if you want to be really effective from a sales perspective. We talk a lot about growth mindset in the business world, and in my mind, that growth mindset and that entrepreneurial spirit and I think they go hand in hand, because it forces you to kind of take that outside the box approach, which you've done, and I think it's incredible. The other thing too, you weren't afraid to fail. You started a couple of businesses and they did fail, and frankly, I've found that my failures have led me to my greatest successes. And so I love that is another thing that it sounds like we've got in common. And I think that's common of a lot of folks is you weren't afraid to take the risk. And because of that, and because you invested in that path, that's why it was successful. But it just didn't happen overnight. And I think that's what's critical for people to understand.